Hello, I am back now, and I am here now to talk about the 3 books that you saw me reading or listening to during my trip. So let's talk about them. So first of all, on the trip to the island, I finished listening an audiobook that I had already started the same week, and that is Gratitude by Delphine de Vigan. It is a French book, and I actually listened to 2 French books, which I hadn't realized at the time. And it is a very bittersweet story about an old woman that is saying the last years of her life. And she develops apraxia, which is a condition in which a person confuses some words with another. So she is a very smart woman, and she is aware enough to know that these are probably the last years of her life. And so she starts to think back about her own life and realizes that she has met some people that she wants to sing, but never got the chance to because years pass and you lose contact with so many people in your life, right? So the story is told through the perspective of two people that are very important in her life at that very moment. And that is the woman that is almost like an adopted child and she has no children. And she was this neighbor that was left alone when she was a child. So this old woman sort of took care of her and developed that motherly and daughter relationship. And the other perspective is from this speech therapist that is now helping the protagonist. So it is through him that we see how the woman develops and we see how she finds herself in this nursing home that she is now in. It is a very sweet story, which is interesting because you would expect it to be bittersweet, which it is, but more bitter than sweet. And yet I was left with a really nice feeling reading it. One of the things that I really liked is that this old woman is way more than just an old woman, that is not the only thing that defines her. This was a woman that lived a whole and personal life. She was a photographer, so she was always traveling. And you can tell that she's a really fun person, even in her 80s or however old she is. So it is very remarkable that no matter the situation that she finds herself in, which is nature, she has had her own personal and remarkable life like her grandparents had and that we have and we will sooner or later also be in our 80s, hopefully. However, of course, the bitter part comes because we see the mental decline that older people suffer. We see that she was for almost the entire part of her life a very smart person, but in these last years she finds herself reduced to that role of the old woman, which is told from the perspective of the adopted daughter. And I really like that part because she shares with us how frustrating it is that the daughter used to share so many insightful talks with her mother, and now all she does is ask her if she has slept well, if she has eaten well, and there's not much to talk to her because she can't keep up anymore. She ends up having the same needs that a child would have. So it is almost this return to childhood that you suffer when you are in your last years. So I thought it was very realistic and very relatable, sadly. And I really liked it all, except for something that happens in the end, which I thought was really unnecessary. And it wasn't even underdeveloped, it was just not developed at all. It felt like something a cheesy movie would do, and I thought the book was more than that. So I gave the novella 4.5 stars, and it wasn't really because of that small detail in the ending, because it doesn't really affect the story at all, which is one of the reasons for which I think it shouldn't be there. But it was instead because obviously I really loved the book. It is 4.5 stars. But coming to it, I thought it might be a bit preachy and a bit sappy. And it really surprised me because it felt very natural and again very relatable, but I still couldn't help but feel that it was a bit sappy and preachy after I finished it. The book is called Gratitude because it talks about the people that you meet in your life and that you are grateful for in one way or another. And it talks about how you should say thank you before it is too late. And it is a great message, right? It's just that a part of me doesn't want books to tell me how to live my life. which is why I don't read self-help books and any sort of genre like that. So that's why it is 4.5 stars. But again, it is one of the best reads of the entire year so far. Let's continue with the second book. This one I started reading there. You saw me reading it in my ebook. And that is A Circle of Witches, an anthology of Victorian witchcraft stories. This is an anthology that focuses on real stories that were registered about supposedly instances of witches and how they were burned for it. It focuses on witch hunts that took place specifically on England, on Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. And that is the first half, but the second half of the book are fictional stories written by female writers, women, during the Victorian ages. The thing is, I haven't finished this book yet. It's the only one of the three that I haven't finished. And so far, I'm a bit underwhelmed, to be honest. The historical chronicles of the witch hunts are divided by country, and they each have an introduction. And the problem is that I found the introduction to be the best part. The introduction is where the writers and editors use their logical sense to offer explanations to the witch hunts. And those explanations are usually rooted in ableism, ageism, discrimination, racism, and of course misogyny, and even anti-intellectualism, anti-science specifically. So basically the introduction offers a great analysis of the past, but then we are actually introduced to the historical chronicles, and they are so boring. They are chronicles with almost no prose. It's just very direct, very to the point, and it just talks about a woman that supposedly poisoned someone, and because of that, that person grew 2 heads, and she was burned for it. And it's like a judge writing that. And it's just stories like that all the time, except for the introduction. So I guess I expected a bit of a plausible explanation from the editors, or a bit of a social critique in between the stories. But so far I just gotten none of that. And I still have left the later half, which is the fictional stories written by Victorian writers. And maybe that gets better. Maybe then I can ignore that this was an unfair persecution of women that obviously were not actual witches. But until then, it's like the book doesn't really know what to be, because the introduction is very logical, but then the chronicle stories are almost like, ooh, witches exist. See this historical writing that tells you that they do exist, and all they did to everyone, and you know that didn't happen, and it even tells you so in the introduction. So it's a bit strange. It's like the book doesn't know what to be really. And lastly, the other book that I did finish is My Husband by Ventura, which is another French author. This book was so fun in a very dark and intended way, but it is very funny because you are laughing in spite of the character and not with the character. It is about this married woman that has been stuck for 10 years or over 10 years in the honeymoon phase of the relationship between her and her husband. So the whole book is about her talking about his husband and how much she loves him, but also how he doesn't meet her expectations, because she's incredibly demanding and incredibly insecure. In the book, she actually talks about how she describes each person that she meets with 3 adjectives, which I found funny because I had written 3 adjectives that describe her, and I don't know what that says about me if I'm like her. Okay, so the adjectives I had written for her were that she is neurotic, demanding, and an overthinker. And I think that is the way she is throughout the entire book. So the entire book is about the psyche of this main character being explored. Which she doesn't have a name, and neither does the husband. What's funny and what is part of that dark humor is that she is very demanding, but she does not need any of those demands in return herself. And that is that she does not communicate at all with her husband, and she hides a lot of things from him, for example. But she's so in love that she wants the husband to see her as this mysterious woman which wouldn't last 10 years of marriage at all. So, for example, she doesn't want her husband to know when she's going to go to the bathroom. When she's in there, she doesn't want the husband to know what she's doing. Part of this dark humor, though, is how toxic she is. Because she, for example, hides or changes his things from one place to another when he does something that she doesn't like, So the more we learn about her, the more we see how out of touch and how crazy she is. I have to say, though, that she does have some what I found to be relatable moments, especially in regards to her maternal instincts or lack thereof, because she had, I think, 2 children only because his husband wanted them to have them. As someone who doesn't want to have children myself, I like how she talks about the lack of maternal instinct, not as something that is selfish, as some people think, but instead of something that simply isn't there. And for anyone that has read the book is known to have a controversial ending, so what I will say is that I actually loved it. I love how it changes your perspective of things. That's all I will say. Still, I rated the book 3.5 stars, which is a very book rating for me. I think over 3 stars is great. And it was because since this is a book that has no actual plot and it is instead about the psyche of one character, which I love those types of books, I still found that this main character was a bit one-dimensional and repetitive in her thoughts to focus only on that. You get the whole idea very early on and it doesn't really evolve from there. So that's it. Those are the 3 books that I have read. Well, I didn't read only 2. I'm still reading the 3rd. And thank you so much. That was my first vlog, so I really hope you like it. I don't usually go to the beach. I'm not much of a summer girl at all, but I still hope I was able to offer something to you. So consider liking and subscribing to the channel if you liked it and if you would like more. And I talk about books. I like literary fiction, I like classics, I like horror. So that is pretty much it, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.